Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I would like to welcome you to episode 173 of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. The FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report is sponsored by Advanced Compliance Solutions. Today I visit with Adam Turteltaub from the SCCE, the Society of Corporate Compliance and Ethics, and we visit about some of Adam's recent travels, upcoming SCCE events, and specifically we focus on the 2015 Compliance and Ethics Institute, which will be held from October 4 to 7 in Las Vegas. Adam details some of the events around the conference and some of the new developments and initiatives SCCE will have this year. He talks about the tracks, some of the highlights of the keynote speakers. The episode comes in at just over 21 minutes. I hope you will enjoy it. Thank you very much for listening. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I'd like to welcome you to this episode of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Today I have back my good friend Adam Turteltaub. Adam is the Vice President of Membership and Development at the SCCE. And he has been on a not exactly around the world tour, but certainly outside the U.S. tour. He's been to some very interesting places with the SCCE over the past couple of weeks. The SCCE has its upcoming annual Compliance and Ethics Institute. And so I asked Adam if he could take some time to tell us where he's been and maybe give us a preview of hopefully where many of us are going to be the first week in October. So with that, Adam, welcome, and thanks a lot for coming on the podcast this week.
Oh, thanks for letting me join you, and glad we could find a time when I'm at my desk, and so are you.
Well, why don't you start off by telling us sort of where you've been over the past, maybe June.
Okay. Yeah, well, I just got back from Washington, D.C. We every year, fortunate, the FBI puts on a 2-day program about its compliance program and also trends in crime that business needs to be aware of, which includes also a really interesting and fun tour of the training facility in Quantico, Virginia. So that was really terrific to see. But I got to say some scary information there about the depth of cyber attacks that are going on now. Everything from hacking to very sophisticated phishing expeditions in which they do things like identify key executives, spoof emails from them designed to dupe employees to think that a senior person has asked them, for example, to transfer money. And then other trips that I've done recently, I think for us, I mean, we're exhibiting down in Brazil last week. We just had our higher education compliance conference in Austin, Texas, which was a big success, obviously a very specialized audience. And then we're coming up on our Singapore Academy, which will be taking place there on, let me look up the dates quickly. July 13th through 16th, and we keep those academies to about 75 people, and as of this morning we had 74. So
wow.
If anybody's listening, yeah, they should do that. And I think it's interesting seeing how the growth of the academies is gone. I still remember I just joined SCCE 7 years ago when we were about to do our first international campus, which was in Zurich. And we had all of 17 attendees, and this year we had, I think it was 72, just again shy of selling out. And Singapore numbers are looking great. Brazil sold out for the academies last year, and our European Compliance and Ethics Institute attendance was way up earlier this year when we had it in London back at the end of March, early April. And I think that really speaks to the growth of the compliance world globally. And I think one of the things that's significant about it is it's not just big U.S. companies or even big multinational based in, say, Europe, that we're seeing more and more companies that are, if you will, farther down the supply chain who are starting to come to the academies. Some of it's driven by local developments in law like the Brazilian Clean Companies Act. Some of it is driven by the fact that their people that they're selling to have started asking them what's their compliance program. And the company's realizing that if they're going to be players in the global economy, they very much need to have a strong compliance program in place that works, that they can use to demonstrate that they're ready to be a supplier on the global stage.
Well, that's a concept that's near and dear to my heart, and something I've seen happen quite a bit in Houston because of the number of enforcement actions, FCPA enforcement actions, where companies have really instituted a business solution to the legal problem of FCPA compliance and driven compliance down the supply chain to the smallest and lowest level, or the smallest company now has to have a compliance program if they want to do business with any of the big boys up the chain in energy. And I hope that model will continue to spread, because there's nothing like business incentivizing compliance in my book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when it becomes, it's one of those things like anything. Once it becomes a standard, it's expected that you have it, and there's a lot less resistance to it, which is important. Compliance is always a bit of an uphill battle for organizations, and by sort of, literally leveling the playing field in that area, it makes the job a lot easier when the expectation is that you're going to have a program in place and it's going to be looked at and trusted.
Adam, I'd like to turn now to the upcoming Compliance and Ethics Institute, which is scheduled for October 4th through 7th in Las Vegas. We're back in Las Vegas this year at the Aria Hotel. We have been there before. I found it to be an excellent facility. It's got really everything you would want, I would think, for a large conference in one area. And are there any sort of highlights that you'd like to talk to us about, or any other?
Sure, yeah. And I think one of the highlights, by the way, for those folks who don't really like Las Vegas, is at the Aria you can go straight from your hotel room to the meeting space without having to walk through the casino, which is a big plus. Anyway, yeah, I think one of the things I think I'll focus on is our general sessions. We're holding one reserve for speaker that we're waiting to hear back from, but the three that we've got so far, one, we're going to do a panel on what we're calling next-gen compliance, basically where the industry, where the profession is going in terms of as compliance evolves. It becomes a lot more about interpersonal skills, communication strategies. As compliance grows more and more independent from other roles, how do you work with those other professions? Roy Snell, our CEO, is going to actually lead that session, and we've got 4 industry veterans, Marjorie Doyle, Odell Guyton, Debbie Choklis, and Art Weiss, who will all be part of that panel. So that should be a really interesting one. And then we've got a fun and I think provocative session that's going to seem to come out of the blue or out of the deep black of outer space is Garrett Reisman, who was served 95 days on the International Space Station and did a separate space shuttle mission. Is going to talk about spaceflight and its risks and lessons from the space shuttle program. I did a short video interview preview with him, which you can find off of the Compliance and Ethics Institute site. It's just complianceethicsinstitute.org. Where he talks, I'm going to get the phrase wrong, but sort of it's the normalization of deviancy, I think is what he said, that basically one of the things that was a big problem and which ultimately led to one of the disasters there was the fact that something that's not supposed to happen did, and over again, and after a while it started feeling normal. Specifically, the foam was never supposed to fall off the tanks of the space shuttle.
Right.
And they worked hard to try to stop it, but it just kept happening. And after a while, they realized, it's not causing any problems, and it sort of got to be accepted. And ultimately, it led to them losing a space shuttle and all the people on board.
Right.
And I think it's a risk company sees all the time, that people start getting away with stuff and they don't get caught and there doesn't seem to be any repercussions, so they think it's okay. And after a while, of course, they learn the hard way that it tends not to be okay. And it's a good watchword for compliance officers. And then we also have the General Counsel for the Department of Commerce speaking.
That was very interesting, that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's interesting, we've had a lot of government speakers, and they tend to be from the enforcement side. What's lost on a lot of people is the Department of Commerce's job is there partially so that when a company has a problem with corruption, they're there to be a resource for them to try and help put the strength of the U.S. government behind them and saying no to the corruption and letting the foreign government know that somebody's got their hand out and is holding up business. You know, the Commerce Department's job is to help promote American business, and what they are really eager for is more companies to come forward and work with them when they start having problems with corruption issues.
Mm-hmm. Adam, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then in addition to all that, we've got, I think, 100-plus sessions arranged into a myriad of tracks from risk to ethics to global issues, all designed to case studies, all designed for people to, you know, be able to follow their interests, and anyone's welcome to either follow a track start to finish or skip back and forth between them. And one of the most interesting tracks is the Advanced Discussion Group track. Sessions there are PowerPoint light, if not non-existent. The point isn't for a speaker to be in the front of the room telling you, but the person who's the speaker to do the moderation of the session. In fact, slides are pretty much limited to those used for audience feedback, or you can poll the audience anonymously and people can see, you know, what their opinion is and how it measures up against the rest of the room.
And I really enjoyed the tracks last year. I'm happy, or I happen to have a copy of the brochure, so I'm looking at it as we visit. And the tracks are color-coded within the brochure, so you can follow them through the myriad of presentations. If this is your first time to attend the CEI, I would really encourage you to take a look at the tracks, because there's just a wealth of information that allows you to focus on a specific area that you might be interested in. There's a couple of other...
And one thing I should have added is we actually added an IT compliance track this year, with cyber being such an issue, mm-hmm. and the data showing compliance officers are increasingly responsible for overseeing them. We thought it would be good to have a full track of sessions for people to be able to follow, to both understand the risks and better manage them. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a couple of pre-conference events that are somewhat known, but perhaps are not as well known as the conference sessions that I'd like you to really talk about, because the people who've attended these have told me they've really gotten a lot out of them. The first one is the Volunteer Project on Saturday. Could you describe what that is? It's gone for multiple years now, but I've heard some people say some really amazing things about it.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I'm not sure exactly what it is this year, but every year what we do is we put together an opportunity for people to come and do volunteer work. It might be painting the walls at an affordable housing project, fixing up. There's a sort of children's village type place in Las Vegas that people before have done some painting, some minor carpentry, things like that. Or go to a food bank and put together baskets of food for people. It's really a nice way for people in the compliance community to both give back to the community and not just sort of fly into a city, go to the meetings and leave. But it also provides a really good place to, I don't like using the word network, because it's not your typical networking thing where it's for, who do I know, who can I meet and how can they help me? But it's a way to get to know your peers. And what's nice for people, especially for those who are coming to the meeting for the first time, to have some friendly faces that they can look to for the rest of the conference. I mean, with 1,500 people in attendance, it's a big group. And, knowing 75 or 100 people that you spend a few hours with in this kind of a setting, it's a great way to get to know some people and feel less alone and feel like you've got not just colleagues there, but people who share, common concerns.
And then the other events, or it's really two events that are held on Sunday, there's a speed networking event and a speed mentoring event. And I think most folks have a general idea about speed networking, and I've heard a lot of comments about how useful that is, but people may not be as familiar with speed mentoring. Could you describe what that is? Because I've also heard some really outstanding things about that event as well.
Yeah, we did that one for the first time last year, and the feedback was great, and the volume level in the room was really great too. It's like speed networking in that you fill out a form online and indicate what your interest areas are, but it's slightly different in that you indicate if you feel like you're a vendor, if you feel like you're a mentor or you feel like you're a potential mentee. And then what you do is you get a series of short conversations, about 6, 7, 8 minutes long, with someone who's either a particular mentee for you or could be a mentor for you. And the two of you have a chance to sit down, quickly see if there might be a connection, mutuality of interest. And then it's really up to you to follow up after that and see if you can keep that relationship going. One of the things people constantly ask for is better mentoring programs, and this is a good way for folks to be able to quickly, meet a few people who might fit the bill. And then really the key thing is, after you've had that connection, following up. Every time we do this or we do speed networking, everyone leaves the room feeling like it's terrific. But the key thing is staying in touch with a person after you left. Mm-hmm. And I should say that we've added another speed event this year. That Sunday evening after the reception, we're doing speed vendor meetings. A lot of people want to be able to meet with vendors, have a chance to get a sense of them, and it can get a little hard during the day when you're going to and from sessions, and there's people you run into in the halls during the breaks. So this will run similarly. You indicate what kind of solutions you're interested in, and then you get a series of very short one-on-one conversations with a vendor. It's not in the booth. It's in a meeting room, and you get a sense of what might be of interest to you or not, and then so you can schedule time to follow up with them later, either at the meeting or afterwards.
Mm-hmm. The looks like we've got a very large number of vendors again this year, and if you haven't been to the event, the vendors are all in one room that you go into to get your coffee and drinks, but it really facilitates communication and cookies. And it facilitates you being able to visit with the vendors. Obviously, they're there to sell, but they're also there to help educate people like us and educate us on the tools and services that are available to help the compliance function. And that I would encourage you to visit and go through the vendor room with its equal an eye to making relationships, because those are the folks who can really help you going forward. The other observation is that there are lots of opportunities to meet people informally, to talk about issues, to talk about problems, and that the way the conference is physically laid out, meaning the hotel rooms, the meeting rooms, the book rooms, the green rooms, it's laid out in a way that you can sit and talk to people, the coffee and other refreshment stands. It allows you to facilitate those sorts of conversations. And if you're coming to this for the first time or for the 5th time or the 10th time, it's a way for you to connect with people and really learn about what's going on in the compliance profession. The other thing that you guys do, perhaps certainly different, but maybe even better than anybody else, is you really put technology at the forefront. And last year you had the iPad wall. Mm-hmm. Is there anything along those lines that we can look forward to, or we just see more of the best?
I think we're going to repeat that again this year. It was a fun way for people to, interact with each other, answer a few questions, some serious, some more fun, and see what others are doing. We actually are going to have a new booth this year, which, by the way, one has more seating and networking space, but it also has got a bunch of iPads for people to really engage in social media. We usually have sort of a social media lounge-ish area where people have the opportunity to tweet and post on Facebook, those kinds of things. And, what's funny is you lose track of the fact that, it's a good networking opportunity because, if you're using a good social media user, it's a great way to find others who are. And then the other thing I'd say is for people who've long thought, gee, maybe it's time I started learning how Twitter works, or it's a good place to come by, and there'll be SCCE people there able to help you get started with it. It's only in the last year, I think, for myself that I've actually started using Twitter. My colleagues have been helpful in showing me how to do it, and I have to admit, much to my family's dismay, I'm somewhat hooked.
Well, I actually started with Meerkat this week, so there may even be some opportunities for live streaming. But that's certainly one of the things that I play in the social media space a fair amount, and I noticed the enthusiasm and really the buzz starting a week before with people announcing on Twitter they were excited about coming out. There were people who tweeted when they had wheels up in the airplane flying to Chicago last year. And then the information and buzz continues throughout the week. So that's something that I find to be very exciting, very useful, and also a way to connect with people on an ongoing basis throughout the conference and beyond. So, Adam, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time, but I was wondering, you mentioned a website, but if someone wanted some more information, could you identify where they might go to find that out?
Sure. They can always go to our main website, which is corporatecompliance.org, and just link over from there, or just go straight to the website for the annual meeting, which is complianceandethicsinstitute.org. And there you'll find everything from the brochure to videos about the meeting to registration.
Well, Adam, thanks a lot, and look forward to continuing the conversation. And certainly, if I don't see you beforehand, I look forward to seeing you in October in Las Vegas.
Thanks for having me, and see you there.
All right. Hello again. This is Tom Fox, and I would like to ask you to please rate this podcast on iTunes. And as a second call to action, I am developing a list of questions for my second mailbag episode. So if you have any questions, please email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. I appreciate you checking in and look forward to visiting with you again on our next episode. Thank you very much.